In today's world of high fashion where wealth and exclusivity set the trends, something strange has happened. Poverty, or at least the look of poverty, has become trendy.
Do you understand some people have felt that putting clothes in bags is insensitive, perhaps, to homeless and other people?
Look, man, I'm an innovator, and I'm not here to sit up and apologize about my ideas.
So how did we end up here?
Designers are selling ripped, oversized, worn-out looking clothes for hundreds, sometimes even thousands of dollars. What was once seen as a sign of struggle is now seen as a fashion statement that has been worn by celebrities and influencers who have never had to struggle a day in their life, or literally who have never had to worry about skipping a meal or finding a place to sleep. From 1,200 distressed sneakers that look like they've been through years of hardships to designer coats that mimic the bulky, layered look of someone sleeping on the street, luxury brands have found a way to just package struggle and sell it at a premium price. The irony, the people who can actually afford these clothes are the least likely to experience real poverty. Meanwhile, those who actually wear tattered clothes out of necessity are ignored, shamed, or even criminalized. This phenomenon isn't just about fashion, it's a reflection of a deeper issue. The rich, they have a way of romanticizing struggles when it's convenient, whether it's through gritty streetwear or social media trends glorifying a hustle lifestyle. But when real people suffer, their struggles aren't seen as fashionable, they are seen as a burden.
And if you kick every Latino out of this country, then who is going to be cleaning your toilet, Donald Trump?
Oh, that's no.
In the sense that,
No.
you know what I mean? Like, but I'm saying
There's more jobs to be
in LA, they always,
but
they don't.
Latinos are not only the
No,
only people
I didn't mean it
doing
like that. Come on. No, I would never mean it like that.
If brands and influencers truly cared, they wouldn't just borrow the look of poverty. They'll literally use their wealth and their influence to address its root causes. In the end, making poverty look stylish does nothing to help those who are actually living it. Instead, it turns hardship into entertainment. And this is just another way for the wealthy to profit off the realities of those that will never have to face it. That being said, let me introduce myself. Hi guys, welcome to my channel, and on this channel I speak about whatever I want to speak about, whether they're trendy or not. I give deep dives, documentary, social commentaries, literally whatever piques my interest, I speak about it. And that being said, if you'd want to see me next week, kindly like, subscribe, share this video if you care. It will mean the world to me, and let's reach 30,000 subscribers before the end of February. I know we can do it, okay? That being said, let's get straight into this video. So today we're speaking about poverty core. We're going to speak about how the rich people are commodifying poverty, how they want to look poor, but they're actually doing nothing to help those on the street. So we're going to speak about the rich's obsession with poverty.
Have you ever wanted to pay $1,800 for a trash bag? Well, you're in luck because now you can. Balenciaga will be releasing their new luxury handbag soon, and it looks exactly like a trash bag. Matter of fact, the guy who designed it said he was inspired by trash bags when designing this thing. I can't even be that angry at Balenciaga for this, because these guys know there are idiots out there who are gonna buy this shit. They're literally trolling their customers while taking all their money. These guys could release a shirt like this and just slap a Balenciaga logo on it. They could sell it for $1,000 and people would buy it. If you want a cool bag, buy something like this. At least it has some aesthetic. I'm literally giving Balenciaga free promo by making this video. So if you're watching this and you're on the fence about buying this bag, I think you definitely should buy it, because that $1,800 you're gonna spend on this bag, it's gonna be a lot more useful in somebody else's pocket.
This is
Prisoners.
racist. This feels racist.
that used to sag their pants.
This feels very racist,
It
guys.
is, look,
Balenciaga.
it stops.
Kai. They have woven the boxers inside the trouser.
Inside.
Kai.
The term poverty core refers to the deliberate use of distressed, disheveled, and often ruined clothing by fashion brands just to evoke a sense of poverty or loneliness. Before I go on, this video was inspired by Ibrahim Kamit, and honestly he did a very good job speaking about poverty core, but I'm going to tell you guys my own version. But anyways, the term poverty core refers to the deliberate use of distressed, disheveled and often ruined clothing by fashion brands just to evoke a sense of poverty and homelessness. This trend has gained traction over the years, particularly on the runway, where fashion shows have featured garments that look as though they were torn, stained or threadbare. Basically, high fashions, they have this habit of taking everyday struggles, repackaging them and selling them to the wealthy. Lately, this trend has taken a bizarre turn and poverty itself has become a style statement. From Balenciaga's 1,790 trash bag inspired purse to Kanye West Yeezy collections, which resemble survivalist or refugee clothing, luxury brands, they are cashing in on the aesthetics of struggles while ignoring the reality behind poverty and behind struggle. Balenciaga, led by designer Dema Vasalia, I'm sorry if I cannot pronounce that name, trust me, I have tried, I can't pronounce it, I apologize. So basically, the designer of Balenciaga has blurred the line between the rich and the poor by turning items associated with hardship into high-priced accessories. A purse that looks like a garbage bag, a tattered sweater that costs more than a month's rent. This design, they mimic the visuals of struggling communities, but they are marketed to people who would never experience the hardship that they represent. Similarly, Kanye West Yeezy collection, we're going to speak about Kanye West literally later on in this video, we'll expand more on him. But basically, similarly, Kanye West Yeezy collection has embraced an apocalyptic, oversized, worn-out look. While the aesthetic may seem edgy or artistic to the elite, it draws clear parallels to the clothes being worn by those surviving on the margins of society, only with a luxury price tag that is being attached. The issue isn't just about these brands, it isn't just that these brands borrow the look of poverty, it's that they strip it out of its meaning. Instead of acknowledging the very real struggles that are faced by homeless and marginalized communities, they present poverty core as an edgy dystopian fashion statement. And the rich, they get to play dress up in hardship while staying completely removed from its harsh realities.
Do you understand? Some people have felt that putting clothes in bags is insensitive, perhaps, to homeless and other people.
Look, man, I'm an innovator, and I'm not here to sit up and apologize about my ideas. That's exactly what the media tries to do. Make us apologize for any idea that doesn't fall under exactly the way they want us to think.
He says his goal is to confront conventional traditions, to make fashion more informal and accessible. His intent, he says, is to ditch what he considers waste, the plastic hangers and tags on clothing racks that he considers unnecessary.
Fashion has always borrowed from different cultures and subcultures, but when it starts profiting from the struggles of the poor without giving back, this is when it turns from fashion to exploitation. If this brand truly wanted to make a statement, they wouldn't just sell $2,000 jackets to mimic homelessness. Instead, they'll use their power and their influence to help those who are actually in need. Now, speaking about Balenciaga for a bit, let's talk about them. Let's talk about Balenciaga and the commodification of culture. Balenciaga has made a habit of taking everyday cultural significant items, stripping them from their history and selling it back to the wealthy at outrageous prices. Whether it's turning a simple shopping bag into a high-end accessory or rebranding a household object as fashion, the brand has repeatedly profited off cultures and communities without acknowledging their struggles. One of the most glaring examples of this is Balenciaga's take on the Ghana Must Go bag. And in case you don't know a Ghana Must Go bag, I'm about to explain to you. So basically, a Ghana Must Go bag is a checkered woven plastic bag that is widely used across West Africa for travel, trade, and also migration.
The origin of the famous Ghana Must Go bag can be traced back to the 1960s when it was first introduced as an affordable option for carrying goods. However, it gained popularity during the 1983 mass deportation of Ghanaians from Nigeria. Before then, Ghana struggled with severe economic hardship, forcing many Ghanaians to migrate to Nigeria for better opportunities. However, tension arose after Nigeria's economy deteriorated, resulting in job competition between Nigerians and Ghanaians. In 1983, as unemployment heightened, the Nigerian government issued a decree to expel all undocumented immigrants. Over 2 million Ghanaians were forced to return home. As Ghanaians hastily packed their belongings to leave the country, many turned to these inexpensive bags which were sold out in the Lagos markets. The name Ghana Must Go was coined by Nigerians as a derogatory term to express their desire for Ghanaians to leave the country. It has been adopted as a symbol of resilience, adaptability, and the enduring spirit of the Ghanaian people.
This bag holds deep historical and cultural significance. It became a symbol of resilience in the 1980s when Ghanaian migrants in Nigeria were forcibly expelled, carrying all they owned in this affordable, durable bag. The phrase Ghana Must Go itself, it stems from this painful history of displacement. So basically, yet Balenciaga turned this symbol of survival into a luxury note, stripping it of its context and selling it to the elite for hundreds or thousands of dollars. The same pattern has played out with IKEA-style shopping bags. Each time, a humble, practical item is being rebranded as a status symbol for those who can actually afford it. This issue isn't just that Balenciaga is borrowing from other cultures, it's that they are doing it without respect or even acknowledgement. When these bags are being used by everyday people, they are seen as cheap, ordinary, or even embarrassing, especially the Ghana Must Go bag. Like literally, holding a Ghana Must Go bag is seen as someone who cannot even afford a literal travel bag. But when Balenciaga uses that and commodifies it and then puts a price tag on it, it's very insulting to those who literally that's all they have, and it erases the painful history behind the Ghana Must Go bag. This double standard just highlights how wealth can rewrite narratives, turning symbols of struggles into trends for the privileged. Cultural items shouldn't be reduced to commodities for profit, especially when their original users faces discrimination from using them. If Balenciaga truly wants to engage with this culture, they could collaborate with local artisans, invest in the communities that this design comes from, or at the very least respect the history behind the items that they commercialize. Until then, their attempts to elevate cultural symbols are nothing more than exploitation dressed up as fashion. Now let's talk about the fashion runway, and let's talk about how they've made poverty a statement. Fashion has always been more than just clothes. It reflects the changes and the values of society. In recent years, there's been a strange twist on the runway, and that's what's now being called poverty core. This trend takes inspiration from the visual aesthetic of poverty, homelessness, and distress, but with a huge difference. These clothes are not created out of necessity, they are designed for luxury and sold at eye-watering prices. In the past, designers they often drew from working class aesthetic. Think of blue-collar uniforms, overall, and simple work boots. All these pieces were made for function, not for fashion. But over time, what was once humble has now been reinterpreted and rebranded as cool. High fashion loves to borrow from the everyday lives of regular people, taking simple things and turning it into something that is very, very exclusive. That's nothing new, but now it's gotten even more controversial. Instead of just borrowing the style of working class people, designers are now intentionally making clothes that look like they've been worn by the homeless or even like they were made to survive a dystopian world. Take Kanye West's Yeezy line for example. When Yeezy first hit the runway, it shocked so many people. The clothes looked like they were picked up from the thrift store, ripped sweaters, distressed jeans, oversized scruffy designs. These wearing clothes that screamed luxury. They looked worn out, they looked like they had been through years of hardship, yet they were priced in thousands. The whole look was minimalistic. It had earthy tones like beige, brown, and muted grays. These colors they evolved evoked images of people struggling, living on the edge, maybe even surviving on the streets or even living in refugee camps. But here's the thing, the clothes weren't actually made from cheap materials. No, these were high-end luxury fabrics that were made by high-end designers and sold to people who have no trouble affording the price tags. So what gives? The irony is obvious. The clothes are intentionally designed to look poor and tattered, but they are sold as a statement. For the wealthy, wearing these clothes isn't about necessity or the harsh realities of poverty. It's just about showing off a certain image, a sense of coolness or rebellion that is detached from actual struggle. In other words, it's not about the need to wear these clothes out of survival. It's about wearing them because it makes a statement that you're part of the cultural elite. The clothes become a kind of artistic expression for the rich, a symbol of how in the know they are, even as they avoid the struggles that these clothes actually do represent. In a way, dressing poor has become a form of status for those who can afford it. It's not about actually experiencing poverty, it's about making poverty a trend. And this is something that the wealthy can wear as a badge for their own exclusivity. And that's where it gets very problematic. While these clothes might mimic the aesthetic of hardship, they completely remove the reality of it. Real poverty is something people live through, not something that can be repackaged and sold as whole. It's a huge disconnect, and it's one that turns hardship into a fashion statement without experiencing, understanding, or respecting the lives of those who actually face it every day. Wearing these clothes is not about actually experiencing struggle, but about showing that they can afford to look like they have struggled. It's a paradox. Poverty is being rebranded as cool, edgy, and desirable, even though real poverty is anything but glamorous. The poverty chic aesthetic becomes just another way to market status and creativity, except that it's all based on a reality that most of the people wearing these clothes will never actually live. It's the ultimate commodification of hardship, where a lifestyle born out of necessity is turned into an expensive trend for those who can afford to be rebels from the comfort of their homes. Now, let's talk about the commodification of homelessness. Fashion has long had a history of borrowing from different walks of life, but recently there's been a troubling trend. Designers are turning real poverty and homelessness into a luxury aesthetic. Clothing that looks worn out, dressed, and street inspired is now marketed as cutting-edge high fashion, and this trend is especially popular among the rich and the famous, like Kylie Jenner, who have embraced this so-called poverty core look. It's a style that seems to rebel against traditional fashion by embracing a rough around the edges vibe, but the key issue is what gets ignored. Real poverty and real human suffering gets ignored. The problem here isn't just that these clothes look like they've been worn by people living on the streets. The problem is that these clothes are often priced as if they are the height of sophistication. You will see high fashion runways featuring ripped jeans, oversized jackets, and distressed sneakers, and they are marketed as luxury items. The irony is that for the people who originally wore this kind of clothes, they weren't making a style choice. They were simply trying to get by what they could afford. But for the rich, dressing in poverty-inspired fashion is a form of self-expression, and it's a way of saying, I'm different, I'm rebellious. This isn't just a case of borrowing from the working class or marginalized group. It's a form of appropriation. These groups, they wear clothes out of necessity, but fashion brands have taken those same visuals and rebranded them as something desirable. They've taken the very struggles of homelessness, displacement, and survival, and they've packaged them as a luxury aesthetic for the elite. The commodification of homelessness turns real human pain into a marketable product where people who live that reality continue to be ignored and continue to be stigmatized. So that being said, let's speak about the black dress transformation. If you want to see how clothing, once associated with hardship, can turn into a symbol of high status chic. Look no further than the little black dress. Once, it was a garment that was worn by people that were mourning. It was something to avoid because it was seen as somber and brave. But then came Coco Chanel. Coco Chanel is a story I would want to speak about in my history channel. So if you want to see that, kindly subscribe in my history channel because I'm going to speak about her. I think that will be my next video. But anyways, then came Coco Chanel. Coco Chanel turned the black dress into a revolutionary piece of fashion. And by the 20th century, the little black dress had evolved into this epitome of elegance, sophistication, and wealth. This transformation is the perfect example of how fashion can elevate something that was once considered low or negative into something that became desirable. What was once a practical garment worn by those without means became a must-have for women in high society. This shift shows just how much influence the wealthy have over fashion trends and cultural perceptions. The little black dress that was once tied to the struggles of the working class finally became a symbol of high-class chic, a stark reminder that fashion can shape how we view the world.
1926, Coco Chanel revolutionized fashion with three simple words: little black dress. For hundreds of years, the cost of black fabric and dye made wearing black a symbol of wealth and status. During the Victorian period, wearing black was associated with funerals and mourning. By the early 20th century, an emerging designer, Gabrielle Coco Chanel, had liberated women from their corsets and introduced the little black dress. It was easy to wear and the perfect choice for every occasion. Due to its popularity, it was quickly named the Ford of women's wardrobes in reference to the car. In 1983, Karl Lagerfeld took the reins and reinterpreted Coco's little black dress in his collections. For example, in his autumn-winter 2008 collection, he did this with Coco's ribbon dress from 1926. Almost 100 years later, the little black dress remains a staple in women's closets. From meetings at United Nations, seeking revenge from your ex, having breakfast outside Tiffany's, performing at Wembley Stadium, or even the cover of Vogue, the little black dress isn't going anywhere.
So now we've spoken about the black dress, let's speak about the Burberry effect. Another example of this fashion transformation comes from the UK with Burberry. The brand's iconic plaid pattern, which was once associated with the upper class, became linked with working class youth culture in the early 2000s. In particular, it was worn by chav. So chav is a derogatory term that is being used to describe working class youth, often seen as uncouth or lowbrow.
Was a white working class man. He spent his money on heavily logoed sportswear, gold chains, and sovereign rings. His girlfriend, a chavette, had hoop earrings and a bit of an attitude.
Why are you falling out? Chav is quite a...
So basically, Burberry's reputation shifted from an elite symbol to something that was considered tacky and associated with street culture. I'm not gonna lie, I don't like Burberry, I don't like Gucci, it's just everywhere, it's just to my face. Which our next video is about quiet luxury. Literally, after this tomorrow, the next video is about quiet luxury. This video made me write a script on quiet luxury, so our next video is on quiet luxury. But anyways, let's go back to Burberry. So obviously, Burberry was just everywhere and it looked tacky. When this happened, Burberry did something very interesting. Instead of rejecting its new association, they leaned into it, they rebranded themselves, they updated their design, and they marketed it to appeal to a broader, more diverse audience. Suddenly, the plaid pattern that was being mocked by people was back in the closet of the rich and famous, and the brand had successfully made what was once seen as a symbol of working class culture into a symbol of high fashion. The process of taking something that was once linked to struggle and transforming it into a symbol of wealth is common in fashion. It just shows how easily cultural perceptions can be manipulated by the wealthy, turning something humble into something aspirational. So now let's speak about Slavic. So Slavic is a homeless fashion icon. So Slavic is a homeless man from Ukraine, and he's an extraordinary example of how the fashion world commodified poverty. So Slavic became became something of a phenomenon, not because he was thought to be famous, but because of his everyday survival style, which was made up of mismatched layers, second-hand finds, and worn-out clothing. And it was suddenly seen as a cool and refined form of street fashion. His look, which was once born out of necessity, became a celebrated and aspirational aesthetic for so many people. What was once the visual language of hardship and struggle began to be rebranded as the height of style, especially within certain circles of the fashion elite. What's striking about Slavic's rise to fame is the way the fashion world stripped his lived reality of homelessness and repackaged it into a trend. His fashion, which was not about self-expression or status, but simply about surviving and getting by, became the subject of admiration. Designers and influencers, they began to imitate his distressed look, and this is a style that had once signified a lack of resources, but is now being regarded as a symbol of avant-garde creativity. People who could easily afford new clothes began to pay homage to the aesthetic of poverty, adopting a refined version of Slavic's look in the name of high culture and street style. This phenomenon points to how far fashion has pushed the boundary of what it means to appropriate and commodify real-world struggles. Slavic's clothing, which for him was a necessity, became something that was trendy that others could just buy into. His mismatched layers and tattered clothes, things that told the story of a man trying to survive on the streets, are now being sold as luxury fashion statement. This shift reveals the discomforting truth. And what is the discomforting truth? The fashion industry can take something deeply real, like homelessness, and strip it of its context, turning it into something that is consumable, commodify it, and then they wouldn't acknowledge the suffering behind it. Slavic's story isn't just about him becoming a fashion icon. It's a commentary on how fashion often divorces itself from the harsh reality that it references. Homelessness is a life or death issue for millions of people around the world. When the hands of fashion industry is just a trend to be packaged and marketed to those who can actually afford to play with it. By reinterpreting poverty as a form of art or fashion, it's easy to forget that for many, it's not a statement or a style, it's their reality. And in doing so, fashion can dilute the true meaning of those struggles, turning them into a fleeting trend with little regard for the life behind them. What is the bottom line of all this? When homelessness, poverty, and struggle are commodified into high fashion trends, it's more than just a quirky style choice. It's become a way for the rich to play with real human experiences, turning them into something trendy and marketable without understanding and respecting the pain behind it. By appropriating these struggles, fashion has turned real hardship into a product for the wealthy, while the people who actually live through these conditions remain marginalized. This isn't just about fashion, it's about power, it's about perception, and it's about the ability to truly turn anything, even suffering, into something that they could sell. So that brings us to conclusion, which is the price of poverty core. The rise of poverty core as a fashion trend highlights a complex and troubling shift in how society views wealth, status, and struggle. Initially, this aesthetic, born from the gritty realities of street culture, was once celebrated for its rebellion against traditional norms. It was raw, it was unpolished, it was gritty, drawing inspiration from the lives of those who often find themselves living in hardship. But as the trend gained momentum, it was absorbed into the world of high fashion. It was rebranded as a symbol of avant-garde creativity and exclusivity. What started as a way of life for those facing poverty, whether through necessity or survival, has now been transformed into a luxury product for the rich. Ripped jeans, oversized silhouettes, distressed sneakers, and other poverty-inspired styles are now being sold at astronomical prices, turning what once represented struggle into a fashionable statement. This paradox, where poverty and hardship are being turned into something to be consumed by the wealthy, reveals a deep disconnect between the realities of the working class and the world of high fashion. The true issue with poverty core is not just that it borrows from the visual language of the poor, but that it completely divorces the style from its original content. context. Fashion brands, influencers, and celebrities, they've turned the real suffering of marginalized groups into a commodified, trendy aesthetic without even acknowledging the pain behind it. And by doing so, they distance themselves from the lived experiences of those who wear these clothes out of necessity, not choice. The wealthy can don these looks without ever experiencing the actual hardship that inspired them, while the poor remain trapped in a cycle of poverty with no way of turning their struggles into cultural capital. In this sense, poverty core is more than just a fashion trend. It's a reflection of a society increasingly disconnected from the everyday realities of the working class. It just underscores how the struggles of the poor are being exploited to serve the status and the cultural desires of the rich, turning hardship into a symbol of luxury. Ultimately, this trend asks us to consider who benefits from the commodification of poverty and whether it's very, very right for the society to make fashion out of suffering, especially when it's done in a way that it erases the real issues that are being faced by the marginalized. And guys, that brings us to the end of this video. If you enjoyed this video, kindly like, share, subscribe. It will really mean the world to me. And thank you so much for stopping by. Woo! So that was a lot, but thank you so much. If you made it to the end, I really do love and appreciate each and every one of you. And that being said, kindly like, subscribe, and share this video if you care. Until next time, bye.
I think if I had to guess, I would say $450. $450? $450. Ah, you're 2K.